Hello, my name is Bill Haley for Haley 2024, The Movement's Government Reform Ideas. Now, the Earth's temperature has risen about 1 degree Celsius, maybe 1.5 degrees Celsius or so, or 2 degrees Fahrenheit, maybe up to 3 degrees Fahrenheit, depending on exactly when you want to measure it. If you go back to 1888, climate.gov says about 1 degree Celsius, 2 degrees Fahrenheit. They're worried about it getting up to 1.5, so another 0.5. So we're going to debate some of the issues on this or tell you how we should have a debate. We're not going to debate it here. I'm just going to go over a couple facts, a couple statistics, debate those statistics a little bit, and show how the rating system that I'm proposing will debate the system. So the rating system mandates a robust debate among government officials and rating agencies. I'll discuss how that's going to work in a minute. But it's going to require a robust debate among officials that have official authority. So they're going to have to answer questions from other distinguished scientists and people who the citizens give their trust to. So I will discuss how that works. Some rating agencies will claim that they like the changes in climate, and others will show great concern. A lot of people show great concern about climate change and the effects of it so far. And some people are going to like the change. We're going to discuss some of the statistics. The competitive rating system, if you don't know my system, I'm not going to discuss it all here, but I'm going to, everybody's going to be it requires every citizen and every business to become a member of a rating agency. So you get to join one that matches your philosophy. Gather with about 5 to 10, maybe up to 15 to 20% of your fellow citizens, and you get to have a rating agency. So between 5 and 20% of your fellow citizens group together under a certain philosophy, you have a rating agency. And other people do it the same. There'll be about 5 to a dozen, up to 19 different rating agencies. But I'm going to say about a dozen different ways of looking at how to debate the issues, what you want to see as an end goal, how do you want to measure things, what do you want to see and what you don't want to see. 5 to 20% requirement, I already discussed that. So, once you join, you select what rating agency you're going to join, then you elect your leaders within your membership. Then debating the overall thing we need to do more of in our society is debate the margin of error. Always put the margin of error and discuss how big that margin of error is. Oftentimes you hear statistics surrounding global warming, climate change, and the like, and we have very little margin of error. If we have bigger margin of error and trustworthy and relevant margin of error, relevant is huge. Obviously, we have the thermometers that can get well beyond 1/100 of 1 degree Celsius in measuring, but is that relevant? What are you measuring? Where are you measuring? What time of day? What's the dew point? What's the humidity level? What's all that stuff? It matters. Air pressure and the whole 9 yards. So it all will be fully explored. So the debate. So one of the concerns of global warming is life expectancy. People are concerned about that. So in the 1950s, the average life expectancy at birth was only 48.5 years. And in 2019, it was 72.8. Humanprogress.org. And you want to look at that. Numbers are all over the place, depending on what country you want to look at and what areas you want to look at. And some years are more, some years are less. Since the pandemic, we have declined a little bit. So it fluctuates. But living another full generation, some people will view that positively, and some people will debate and view that very negatively. So people who are afraid of climate change, they'll probably look at that as a very negative thing. The rating system requires rating agencies to clearly lay out their case, data, research, methods, and results. So if you don't get to really be in the discussion. The rating agencies are going to force that debate. They're not going to take seriously anybody that does not show their data, their research, their methods, their results. If you don't, you can't just put a study out there and have anybody take it seriously or being taken seriously by government officials if it does not do this. If the rating agencies cannot rate it, they cannot explore it, they don't get to be used by the legislative branch to make any legislation. Concern of warming. child mortality. You hear that all the time with climate change and global warming. We're going to have more child mortality, or it will change, regardless whether you like more or less. But out of 1,000 live births in 1950, 20.6%, which is 2% of children died before their 5th birthday. About 1 out of 50 people died. Now that number is only 2.7. That's humanprogress.org. And again, that's different for every area of the country or area of the world, more like it. So that will be debated. What's their method? How did they research that? Where did they get those numbers? What do they include? What do they not include? Because a lot of countries don't include children who die in the first week or so, where America does. So we have different methods of determining that. So a reduction of 87% in child mortality. Some people view that as very positively, and some people view it very negatively. People who are really concerned about global warming, they don't like this type of thing. Concerns of global warming: death from wind. They separate wind and hurricanes and a couple different ones. They seem similar, but they have different methods. So let's look at wind, and that's down 36% from in about 20 years. So I don't got numbers going out all the way back to the 1850s, 1880s, whatever, but it is down. Now, numbers are all over the place. Every year is different. I'm not even saying that this is legitimately the proper numbers to use, because year to year it fluctuates significantly, but it's down. Some people like the fact that it's down. Another will experience great fear that death rates are down. Concerns of global warming: deaths from winter. So they think that both climate change is going to affect worse winters and worse summers. But let's go look at winters right now. Down about 70% deaths. So that's our world in data. And you look at that, and again, you can change those years, and every year has significant changes. So that 70%, I'm not saying overall. It's not a gradual change. It fluctuates pretty significantly. So look at the numbers yourself. Don't take this as gospel, because it's hard to know whether they use good research or not. But our world in data seems to have a pretty good data set, and are fairly reliable on many issues. So, but some people like that we have less deaths, 70% less deaths. Some people people who are concerned about global warming, they really don't like this result. Concerns of global warming: deaths from cold, a little bit different. But that's down 66% since 1989. Again, they don't go all the way back to 1880. It's very hard data to collect. The farther back you go, the more unreliable it is. Did they die of a flu? Did they die of being frozen to death? What is included in that? All that will be debated by the rating agencies. But some people like that we have 66% less deaths, which means two-thirds of the death rate is down. I mean, it's gone. Two-thirds of the people survive that would otherwise be dead. Now, some people like that, and some people are very concerned about how many people get to survive. Concerns of global warming: death from heat. So people are concerned about heat deaths and global warming, obviously. And let's see, 96% down. So that's our world in data. And again, that's one with numbers were fluctuating significantly year to year. So I'm not going to hang my head on that number. Other years, it's not so drastic of a change, but it's still mostly down. But again, that one has a significant change in it. Now, some people like that we have only 4% of the people that used to die now die. Some people are very scared of that. They don't want that many people surviving, and they get concerned about that. That's a concern of global warming. Deaths from hurricanes. So you hear it all the time. More extreme hurricanes are going to kill more people. Well, since 1900 to 2015, now this also is a very hard number to come up with. Numbers are all over the place. I went to Our World with data, but other sources have similar numbers, but it's down 89%. Now, obviously, what do you include in that? If somebody survives for a month, but then dies from injuries from a hurricane, is that a hurricane death? What's not? So how do they collect that data? Collecting data back in the 1900s is very, very difficult. So it's very hard to have these numbers being legitimate. Margin of errors on this is huge, no doubt about it, but it's still down. You look at hurricanes in this country, in America, versus hurricanes in some third world countries or second world countries, and a similar hurricane will kill a lot more people in the third world because their shelters are just not as strong, and they get injured a lot more from that. But hey, some people like that we save 89% of the people that used to die from hurricanes. Some people are very concerned about that many people surviving. They don't like the human race populating the earth more than they have, and they like these events of hurricanes causing a lot of deaths. Concerns of global warming, deaths from tornadoes. So some people like it, some people don't, but it's down 95%. Our world in data, obviously, and again, this one was numbers all over the place. You go to a different year from 1947 and a different year from 2015, and these numbers can be dramatically different. However, it's still down significantly. So we are building stronger shelters, and the debate about why we're surviving more, yeah, the rating agencies can debate that, but it needs to be debated. But some people like it and some people don't. Some people they want to go back up to where we were and go back to the living standards we were at 1900s and 1880, whatever year you want to go back to. And they think that nature is just going to be better for them. I mean, which means to some people, more deaths. Concerns of global warming, deaths from floods. So you hear floods as a big concern of global warming people, and it's down 79%. Again, numbers are all over the place. You go to any of the data sets and you change the beginning date and the end date, and it's very hard. And again, what are the deaths from a flood? If it ruins all your crops and you starve to death, is that a death from flood? Or is that a death from famine or death from overwatering? Obviously, it's not a drought situation, but a famine is without food. Drought is without water to grow food. However, it's down 79%. So, and that's just only in about, 40, 45, 50 years or so. So, again, numbers are all over the place. Every year fluctuates significantly, but it's generally down significantly because floods, we have early warning systems, we have better roads, we can get out of the way a little bit better than we used to. 79% of deaths from floods. Some people like it, some people view that with great fear. Concerns of global warming, access to safe water. Now, this is a big one. People talk about this all the time in global warming and climate change. They want to go back to what it was in 1900s. Okay, let's just go over a few things. Access to safe water. In 2019, a report reveals that 1.8 billion people have gained access to basic drinking water services since 2000. So, in those 19 years, from the World Health Organization, they say that 1.8 billion, only about 8 billion people, 7 billion if you want to, 7, 8, 9 billion people, depending on how you want to measure how many people we have. I don't think we are very good at counting the number of people. Again, margin of error is probably pretty high on counting people in this world. But we have added, this is at least 20%, if not 25% of the people have gained access to drinking water. And that's just since 2000. A lot of people had it before that. They said we're up to somewhere between 65 to 80%, depending on what report you want to go to. So, so we have gained in just 20 years about another third of the population, 25 to 30% more people. So it looked through the reports of clean water access before 1850 that you would have to say zero. At 2023 standards, you would say that 0% of the people had access to clean water, or anything close to what 2023 standards are in America or any of the other first world nations. So in the 1850s, they just didn't have it. They were starting to develop some filtration. People told them to boil water and just a lot of issues surrounding that. And most people just did not have that. So we're up to maybe 65, all the way up to 80%, depending on how you want to measure who has access. If you have access during 10% of the time, you have access. Is 90% of the time still access to clean water, or is that still people cut off? I mean, what do you want to measure? And again, all that would be debated by rating agencies, and to get that good number. And what numbers the rating agencies decide, put all the rating agencies together and come up with a somewhat of a clear answer on that question, or at least you know where the debates are. But it went from like 0 when it was 2 to 3 degrees cooler to now 2 to 3 degrees warmer. We went from basically 0 to 2/3 to maybe 80%, and they're looking at maybe in the next 20 years trying to get up to over 95% and then climb up to 100% of everybody with clean access to clean water. So some people don't want that. Some people want to go back to the 1800s, and they want to have that access to that dirty water, that unfiltered water with diseases in it. Now, I don't understand those people, but a lot of people who are wanting to go back, they're concerned about climate change. They want to go back and have that concern. So as the population increased, so it went from about 1800, about 1 billion to about 8 billion or so now, went up 6.5 to 7, 8%, depending on what years you want, or times, not percent. 6 to 8, maybe 9 times in the last 150 to 200, 220 years, depending on what years you want to do it. We have slowly increased, or very gradually increased the population of the world. And as we did that, a higher percentage of the people had access to clean water. So we're around 65 to 80% to the best research I can read. And again, the numbers are all over the place. And what is access? Is it 10% of the time, 90% of the time, or do you have to have it 100% of the time? And what does clean water mean? Enough for drinking, or enough for bathing, or enough for washing your car? What is it? A greater population increases the number of people capable of funding the basic infrastructure to bring clean water. That's one of the big reasons we have more people with access to clean water, because before people were so dispersed, and you just didn't have the population base to justify the capital expense of the infrastructure to bring us clean water. A higher percentage of people with access to clean water. Some people will view that positively, and some people with great fear. They want to go back. The rating system will debate every number and give it context. So going back to the rating system now, you want to give it context. Every rating agency will have to debate the issues, give it context. Are the statistics measuring outliers? Are we starting with outliers or ending with outliers? It can really change your percentages. And what methods are you using? Are you getting rid of the outliers? Are you using consistent measurements? Are you asking people, which is one of the worst ways to get good statistics, is to ask somebody what they want or what they desire. Very poor way of getting good statistics. You just have to study the methods of statistics. Are they cherry picking to get what they want? And that happens often. Are they asking the question in a weird way so people don't understand? I got asked so many questions for statistic purposes for polls. It's asked in a weird way, and you know what they want, but you have to answer in a way that is truthful to the question, and it gets a different answer. Margin of error. We have to come up with a good margin of error and have it on a side sheet, a linkable side sheet, all the issues surrounding this one issue, so people can have a full understanding of what they're talking about in the rating systems. Give it a good rating. Is that number good? Is it within context? While temperatures increase 2 or 3 degrees Fahrenheit, or 1 to maybe even as much as 2 degrees Celsius since 1800s until 2019. Let's go over this real quick. In human progress, the great decline in poverty over time. Let's go over it. In 1800, the life expectancy in the United Kingdom was 38.6 years. Now, again, how do they know that? Going back to 1800s, that's a very hard number to come by. What do they measure? Do they measure anybody above that reaches the age of 5, 10? Do they have to reach a certain age before you start measuring them? I mean, obviously, the infant mortality is significantly high. Do you average all those people in? And GDP per capita was $3,280. Again, very difficult to measure, very difficult with inflation adjusted, but they did the best they could on this. HumanProgress.org does a really good job. They try to really be honest, but again, everything's debatable. By 2019, life expectancy in the UK was 81 years. So it went from 38 to 81. That is double. That is possibly 2 generations, at least a generation and a half, but easily 2 generations if two women give birth, mother and daughter at age 20 or whatever. That's 2 full generations you get to see, your grandchildren and your great-grandchildren type of thing, versus just your child. So you get to see 2 more generations go through life some. And the GDP per capita was hovering around 40,000. So it went from about 3,000 to 40,000, over 10 times as much. So is that 3 degrees increase in temperature the cause? 2 to 3 degrees temperature Fahrenheit, 1 to 2 degrees Celsius. Is that the cause of $3,000 to $40,000? A 10 times increase in per capita. Again, if you don't like those numbers, you want to debate those numbers, fine. But it is 10 times. If you want to debate it, it's going to be at least, and you give yourself every, saying it's not that much, you give yourself every favor on that, it's still at least 5 times more. Is that because it's 3 degrees warmer? There's reasons to believe that could have an effect. I have other policies, and the rating agencies will just discuss other policies that were put into effect in the world, in some areas of the world, that help this out. At 59.2 years of life expectancy in today's Somalia, which is in the world's population poorest country, this is 2019, I believe, is more than 20 years higher than the world's wealthiest country 220 years ago. So in 1800, the wealthiest country did not have a life expectancy of 59.2, which is our least life expectancy country in the world now. So is that because 2 or 3 degrees warmer? Now, I don't think so, but that needs to be debated. What is the reason why? So people are concerned about life expectancy. Now, are they concerned because they're afraid people aren't going to live as long? Or are they really concerned because they know the data about people living longer and having a higher population? Because if you live longer, the population is higher because they only count the living people. And a lot of people don't like the higher population. They're very concerning type of values that some people have. So a concern of global warming, economic damage, and severe impact on the world's poor. Again, let's go back to that one data point. 1800s, GDP was $3,200, almost $3,300 in today's dollars. 2019, GDP per capita was around 40,000. If you look at time hours, how much time time earnings, how much you have to work in able to get that bucket of rice, to get that corn, to raise that chicken, to buy that whatever you're going to buy, to make whatever you're going to make. We were a lot more productive now. So in 1800s, are the world's poor better back when the temperature was 3 degrees cooler? Or are they better now, making $40,000 per capita, the average GDP in 2019? Is it better at 10 times? Now, I think it's better. I would probably join a rating agency that says that's better. Some people would join the rating agency saying, I would rather go back to 1/10 or even 1/12 of the GDP per capita, because we want the we want the climate to go back to what it was. Concerns of global warming, forest fires. You hear it all the time. Now, this one is hard to get numbers on. I think we have more forests now than we did in 1900s, 1800s. Some people make that claim. And I think there's probably pretty good data for that. That can obviously be debated, but we have better forest management now. But the rating agencies will debate the cause of forest fires. Is it climate change or is it forest management? Now, we definitely have better forest management than we did 200 years ago. Now, obviously, I think that we're doing things significantly poorly with forest management now. We could be doing significantly more and better forest management and cutting down on the forest fires. Okay, concern of global warming. Big one out there is famine victims. So let's look at the statistics surrounding famine. Now, people know the numbers. You go back to 1870 when it was about 2 to 3 degrees cooler, 1 degree Celsius, 2 to 3 Fahrenheit. In the 1870s, about 20 million people died from famine. This is when the population was maybe 1.5 to 2 billion people in the world. Now jump 100 years. 1970, 3 million. 1980s, 1 million. 1990s, 1 million. 2000, 2.8. And then 2000, at least through 2010s, at least through 2016, 0.3 million. It might, I don't know what it ended up, but this added through 2016, the statistics. So even if it doubled, it's still 0.6 million. Still a long way from the famine deaths. These are deaths from famine from 1870. So while the weather was 2 to 3 degrees cooler, now it's 2 to 3 degrees warmer. We have a lot less famine deaths, at least, because people don't have to die from famine, because we can ship in and truck in food from other places of the world where we weren't able to do that in the 1870s, at least, not to the degree we can now in any way, shape, or form. So some people are concerned about that many people surviving famines. So people would like it to go back up to the 20 and 30 million, so we don't have as many humans on this earth. I think that's concerning, but the rating agencies can debate whether that's good or bad. Concerns of global warming and climate change is food production. Well, food production is about 10 to 15 times higher than it was in about 1850. Now, part of that is calories per person. We have a lot more food per person, about 50% more food per person, but we have about 6 to 7 times more people on the earth. So food per person times about 6 times, that's about 8, but we have a lot more food. People waste a lot of food. We have a lot more variety of food per person. For each individual person in the world, they have a much higher variety of food that they can pick through. Now, some of the third world, they're still better than the first world 150, 200 years ago. But yeah, they don't have as much variety. But the first world, second world, they have the variety of food. So some people love the fact that we have a lot more food. And some people are very, very concerned that people have a lot more food. And anyway, so their concern with global warming is food production. Well, what side are they on? Or do they actually say they're concerned that we won't have enough food, or we will have way too much? Because in the last 150 or 170 years, in this case, we have had 10 to 15 times more food produced per year than we did 170 years ago. So an average person has access to a full range of food. The poorest 10% of the world has more access compared to the top 10% in 1850. No doubt about it. People who were kings and queens did not have the access to the variety of food that most people in this world have today. Over 90% of the people have a better access than the top 10% had back in the 1850s. People were dying of starvation. People dying of starvation was widespread with an average world temperature 1.5 to 3 degrees cooler. So 1850 to 2023. Starvation is down. This is my number, but it's well over 90%. It's very hard to look at those numbers. What does dying of starvation mean? There's a lot of diseases caused by starvation that you end up dying from that disease, not starvation alone. So is that starvation? Now, I got this 90% from many different articles I read. But hey, some people, they like it. Some people, they don't. Some people don't like that it's down 90%. Some people want to go back to what it was when it was 1.5 to 3 degrees cooler, thinking that it's going to be better and having a lot less calories per person, a lot less food per person, a lot less ability to travel food from one place to another to compensate for people who had bad harvest. Concerns of global warming, sea level rise. So I have not seen any evidence that anybody has died from being overtaken by sea level rise yet. I just haven't seen that. Sea level rise, obviously tidal and storms, yeah, that catches people, but that's not the sea level rise from global warming. That's sea level rise from a hurricane. That obviously takes many lives, and definitely the 2000, I believe it was 2005, India tsunami took hundreds of thousands of lives. Obviously, that's not what we're talking about here. This is sea level rise by global warming, by more water being poured into the ocean from glaciers and stuff, mostly from Antarctica or the Arctic, any glaciers up there. But nobody has died yet from the global warming type of sea level rise by more water being poured into the ocean from what was ice at one point. So beachfront property is still more expensive than inland property. So that right now, some people don't like that. Some people think it's a high concern that we don't have people dying yet, and they want to. I don't know what they want. It's hard to even explain why people are concerned about this. All they have to do is not buy the sea level property near sea level. Buy 20 to 50. If you're really concerned about sea level rise, buy above 200 feet sea level. There's plenty of land in this world, in America, in Canada, in Europe. There's plenty of land everywhere in this world above 200 feet. Buy that and your problems are over. Let the idiots that don't believe in sea level rise keep the property at beach level, at sea level, at 10, 15, 20 feet, and let them suffer the consequences. Obviously, they can get out of the way, but they're just going to suffer their property being put underwater and not be able to be used if sea level does rise. So we have a simple solution to that. Buy your land and develop land above 200 feet, above sea level, above the current sea level. Concerns of global warming, spread of certain pests and diseases. Now, it's hard for me to go and do that massive research, but people live longer after the climate change than they did before 1850. Double in some cases, other cases about 50%. People are living another generation to see more of their offspring grow up another generation. So instead of just seeing your grandchildren for 5 years, you're seeing your great-grandchildren for 5 years. Now, what's going on there? So, concerns of global warming, melting glaciers. Well, no one lives on glaciers. I'm not sure why people can think that this is a concern. Nobody lives on glaciers. Scientists have said that New York was once under a glacier. A glacier was on top of New York. New York State, New York City, whatever you want to call it, up in New York at least. That's where that's where they say the Great Lakes came from. Up in that one area, the Great Lakes area. Now, 100% of the people would move out of New York or the surrounding Great Lakes area if a glacier started forming, because they couldn't live there anymore. And they would move down south. We don't know what's going to happen in the future, but we do know that people moved before. Now, might killed a lot of people back hundreds, thousands, 10,000s of years ago. Weather killed a lot more people. So I'm sure glaciers killed people back then, but nobody's being killed by a glacier melting now. Rating agencies might debate whether glaciers being the source of 90% of the fresh water is relevant. I would go with the rating agency that says it's not relevant that 90% of the fresh water is locked up in these glaciers, because less than 1% of the people chip off ice to go drink that water from glaciers. Nobody does that. Maybe a few people who are doing research in the Antarctic or in the Arctic in a couple places take the ice, chip it off, melt it with the fire and drink the water. Very doable, but 99.9% of the people in this world are not doing that, so it's not relevant. But the rating agencies will be all over the place. Some people will think it's relevant, and some people won't. Concerns of global warming: how many people can the Earth support? So that's a big concern with people that are concerned with global warming. In 1850, about 1.2 billion, the website said, and that's a full 2 degrees Fahrenheit warmer in 2023, and went up to 7.8. My calculations showing about 6%. I mean, 6 times more, not 6% more, 6 times more. So 1.2 billion to 7.8 billion. Now, it's 2 degrees warmer, maybe 3 degrees warmer. Fahrenheit, 1 to 2 degrees Celsius warmer. So is that good? Is that the cause of all these people the Earth will support a lot more people? Maybe. But the rating agencies will debate that. I have other issues surrounding why that is. While temperatures may play a part, both positive and negative, the rating agencies will be forced to debate the top reasons why food production is up 10 times compared to 1850. And the reasons why deaths from the cold, the heat, the hurricanes, the tornadoes, winter, starvation, why those are all down significantly. Way more than half. It is down more than where it was 100, now it's less than 50. A lot of times it's less than 10. It's over 90% decrease in deaths in most of these areas. Other reasons could be the structure. Okay, let me just talk about what rating agencies could talk about. Now, I would join one that says the U.S. Constitution is a tremendous reason why all these good things have happened, if you want to call it good. Some people will call it bad. All these less deaths, all these better living standards, all these average life expectancies. I call it good. Some people call it bad. But for me, I'm just going to call it good for right now. What was the reason for it? The U.S. Constitution was a huge one. The enough critical mass of people who valued liberty and willing to fight for that liberty was a big one. The First Amendment was huge. I'm sorry, a cell phone's going off. I can't mess with it right now. The First Amendment is huge. That gave us a tremendous more less war, less strife, and that helped us with average life expectancy and better quality of life. The Second Amendment, that put the government, in a tyrannical government, in check to keep it more honest. The Fourth Amendment gave people a lot of rights. The 10th Amendment, now I know it's been demolished over the last about 100 years or so, but the first 150 or so years, it really set this nation apart and put us on a trajectory, America at least, on a trajectory of increased standard of living, increased GDP, increased life expectancy and the like. The 13th and the 14th Amendment were huge, getting rid of slavery, and just are changing our value system from liberty for the people who fought for it in the Revolutionary War to now liberty for everybody, at least within this country. And then liberty in the First World War, Second World War, liberty for Europe and the greater Asia and the world, and a fight for liberty around the world with those. So the amendments, the Constitution was huge in giving us that standard of living. Other reasons could be nuclear bomb. The nuclear bomb has decreased the knowledge of the nastiness, of the power, of the death that a nuclear bomb can force. And the video of it was so strong that it stopped a tremendous amount of war. We have so much less deaths from war around the world since the 1945 dropping of the nuclear bomb. Now, we cannot stop there. Fossil fuels have been tremendous in the higher quality of life. Tremendous. Free enterprise, you could not get a bigger reason why we have a bigger standard of living, a higher life expectancy, and just people doing well than free enterprise. Plastics was a huge increase that the rating agencies could debate. So I'm just talking about the rating agency I would like to see, and some of these would come up. So every rating agency would have to fully debate every aspect of these issues with every other rating agencies and every viewpoint. So it will be a mandate when we set up these rating systems if we do this. Monopolized government may not do any action. Once we just set this up, it's going to have clauses in it that monopolized government, the government, I'm not talking about competitive governance now, that's a different issue. Monopolized government may not do any action without a full debate and continuing debate of all these issues, and any of the rating agencies can put more issues in there that has to be debated from all the rating agencies. So it has to be fully debated. Now, obviously, there has to be limitations on how much, and there will be some limitations, but it's going to be significant. Judges will have a ratings of all the viewpoints. So when it goes to the judicial department, they're not just going to get a report from one government agency. They're going to get reports from many experts from many different points of view, and the points of view coming from different rating agencies. So this will inform judges tremendously. Right now, they have to rely on some government officials and government reports. That could be very biased depending on who's in office. What administration's in office? Are they liberal, conservative, Democrat, Republican, libertarian? Who's in office? But they're going to have to use all the different ratings and the information coming from the ratings. And they're going to have a debate. And the judge is going to have to say, is this a legitimate government function that has to be done on a monopolized basis, or can be done at a competitive governance system or in the private sector? Okay, many other statistics. There could be many other statistics out there. And believe me, I did not cherry pick these, but it's out there. I could have picked a whole bunch of different ones. Some not as favorable to it getting better, but it's still all in that direction. Instead of 96, sometimes it turns out to be 70, something like that. So statistics were all over the place, but all those will have a margin of error. All will have context. All will be debating around the issue. Hey, did these persons die of starvation or the cold? Or was it a combination of both? Okay, will global warming just make North Carolina more like South Carolina? This has always been a big issue for me. And just talk about my issue for a minute. Is South Carolina obviously has the average temperature a little bit more than North Carolina. It's a little bit south. So, is it going to be just North Carolina being more like South Carolina? They both have a good population, about the same. Is South Carolina going to be more like Georgia in the future? Is Georgia going to be more like Northern Florida? Is Northern Florida going to be more like Central Florida? Is Central Florida going to be more like South Florida? Then obviously, same thing with California. Is Los Angeles going to be more like San Francisco? Or San Francisco be more like Los Angeles? Well, obviously, there's big populations in both areas. Both can survive. People can survive in both. People survive in the harshest winters in Alaska and the hottest summers in Las Vegas. People survive there. And we don't have big death rates of overheating or from the overheating in Las Vegas, in that desert and that just brutal heat of Las Vegas. The population grows. Well over, I forget the population, but I think it's over 500,000 people, where it used to be just a few thousand people. Because a few thousand people in 1880 versus 500,000 people now living in the desert. Yeah, global warming, did that scare them away? No, we can survive it. We have a much higher population in Alaska, and Canada has grown tremendously. And a big part of that is global warming, or is it freedom? Is it free enterprise? Okay, the basics of my rating system, you can pause and read this, but go to my website at Haley2024.org, read through my rating systems, and this will just give you a little bit of the background of that. The rating system, we can put rating floors on some issues. Obviously, when something's polluting the water and is toxic, and we don't want a whole bunch of lead or some nasty chemicals in our water, yeah, that needs to be stopped. And we have a system for that, rating floors and the like. So nobody wants to have nasty water. We want that solved. But there's a better way of solving it using rating floors and a better system we have now. Okay, there's a lot to see on Haley2024.org. It's what is about a 45-minute video, and there's a lot more to see there. And until the next video.